She posts the photo at 2 a.m., not because she wants to share it, but because she needs to know if she matters. She refreshes the screen once, twice, 20 times in 5 minutes. Each notification is a tiny hit of relief, followed immediately by hunger for the next one. The likes aren't enough. The comments aren't enough. Nothing is ever enough because the void she's trying to fill wasn't created by strangers on the internet. It was carved out years ago in a house where love was a performance and approval was currency. This is the untold story of the validation addict, not the surface narrative of someone who just wants attention, but the brutal archaeology of a soul that learned, before it could even speak properly, that being seen was the only way to survive. Think about a child who brings home a drawing from school. She holds it up, eyes bright with the simple joy of creation. But her mother is scrolling through her phone. "That's nice, sweetie," without looking up. Her father glances briefly. "Why didn't you color inside the lines?" In that moment, something fundamental breaks. Not dramatically, not obviously, just a hairline fracture in the foundation of self-worth. The child learns, "I am not enough as I am." The child adapts. "I must be more to be loved." The child concludes, "My value is what others decide it is." Psychologists call this conditional love, but that phrase is too clean for what it really is. It's emotional starvation, dressed up as parenting. It's a slow-acting poison that teaches a developing nervous system that safety depends on performance. John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, observed that children will literally reshape their entire personality to maintain connection with caregivers. They'll suppress their authentic self, amplify whatever gets positive response, and slowly, methodically build an identity based entirely on external feedback. But here's what makes it brutal. The child doesn't know this is happening. She thinks this is just how love works. You earn it. You compete for it. You perfect yourself for it. And if you don't get it, it's because you weren't good enough. Fast forward 20 years. She's successful by every external measure. The career, the relationship, the carefully curated life that photographs beautifully. But inside there's a terror that never sleeps. A voice that whispers, "They'll find out you're not special. They'll realize you're ordinary. They'll leave." So she works harder, posts more, achieves more, smiles more. And the exhaustion. God, the exhaustion of being a human performance instead of a human being. The neuroscience is devastating in its clarity. When a child's attachment system is wired around validation seeking, the brain literally develops different pathways. The amygdala becomes hyperactive, scanning constantly for signs of rejection. The prefrontal cortex struggles to self-soothe. Dopamine regulation gets tied to external feedback loops instead of internal satisfaction. In other words, the brain becomes addicted to validation the same way it becomes addicted to substances. Same neural pathways, same withdrawal symptoms, same desperate need for the next fix. Studies from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child show that children who grow up with conditional approval have significantly higher cortisol levels, even decades later. Their bodies are literally still bracing for rejection, still performing for love, still running from the original wound. But validation seeking isn't just about insecurity. That's what people misunderstand. It's about survival patterns that once made perfect sense. Think about it. If you're 8 years old and your parents' mood determines whether you feel safe, you become an emotional detective. You study faces. You memorize which versions of yourself get rewards. You learn to shapeshift before you learn to be yourself. This isn't weakness. It's adaptation. This isn't vanity. It's a trauma response. And here's where it gets complex. Society rewards this behavior. We live in a culture that has monetized validation seeking. Social media algorithms literally profit from your need to be seen. Professional success often depends on personal branding. Even intimate relationships can feel like auditioning for love. The person who chases validation isn't broken. They're responding perfectly logically to a world that taught them their worth is negotiable, measurable, conditional. Carl Jung wrote about the false self, the mask we wear to belong. But for the validation addict, there is no mask. The performance has been running so long, they've forgotten there's a face underneath. She remembers moments, fragments, being 12 and spending 3 hours getting ready for school because maybe if she looked perfect enough, someone would finally see her. Not her achievements, not her usefulness, her. Being 17 and dating someone who barely noticed her, but the challenge of winning their approval felt like purpose. Being 25 and sabotaging a relationship with someone who loved her unconditionally because that love felt fake. If they really knew me, she thought, they wouldn't stay. This is the paradox of validation addiction. You chase love while running from it. You demand to be seen while hiding who you really are. You perform intimacy while avoiding genuine connection. Because real love, unconditional love, feels dangerous to a nervous system wired for performance. It feels like a trap, like a trick, like something that will be ripped away the moment you stop earning it. So you keep earning, keep proving, keep exhausting yourself in the endless marathon of enoughness. The healing isn't simple. Let's not pretend it is. You can't just love yourself when your entire neural architecture is built around external validation. You can't just stop caring what people think when your attachment system learned that caring what people think meant survival. But something shifts when you understand the story. When you can see that little girl bringing home her drawing and finally say what no one else did, you were already enough. Before the achievements, before the performance, in your simple, unadorned existence, you were already worthy of love. The research on neuroplasticity offers hope. The brain that learned to chase validation can learn to generate it internally. But it takes practice. Daily, mundane, unglamorous practice. It looks like sitting with the discomfort of not checking your phone, celebrating private victories that no one else will see, saying no when yes would get approval, sharing unfiltered truths instead of polished stories, choosing authenticity even when it costs you likes. Each small act of self-validation is like physical therapy for a nervous system that forgot how to stand on its own. But here's what nobody talks about: the grief. When you stop chasing validation, you have to mourn the identity you built around it. The high achiever, the people pleaser, the one who had it all together. These weren't just roles, they were survival strategies that kept you safe for decades. Letting them go feels like death, because in a way, it is. The false self has to die for the true self to emerge. And that space between, that liminal territory where you're no longer who you were, but not yet who you're becoming, that's terrifying. You might lose relationships. Some people only loved your performance. You might lose opportunities. Some doors only opened for your false self. You might lose your sense of identity. Without the constant feedback, who are you? This is the brutal past that echoes into present. The child who had to dance for love becomes the adult who can't stop performing. But here's the plot twist. The very sensitivity that made you hyper-vigilant to others' approval, that same sensitivity, when turned inward, becomes self-awareness. The creativity you used to craft different versions of yourself, that becomes the tool for authentic self-expression. The resilience that helped you survive conditional love, that becomes the strength to finally choose yourself. She still posts the photo sometimes, but now she doesn't refresh. She doesn't count. She doesn't measure her worth in digital hearts, because she's learned something that took 30 years to understand. The validation she was seeking was never meant to come from outside. It was always supposed to come from the one person she kept betraying for everyone else's approval: herself. And that's the ultimate irony. The person who chases validation already possesses everything they're seeking. They just buried it so deep beneath the performance that they forgot it was there. But it's still there, waiting, patient, ready. The wounded child who learned to perform for love can become the adult who generates love from within. Not through more achievement, not through positive thinking, but through the slow, sacred work of grieving what was lost and reclaiming what was always yours. Your inherent worth, your unearned belonging, your birthright of unconditional self-acceptance. Brutal past shaped you. It marked you. It left scars. But it doesn't own you. And every time you choose authenticity over approval, every time you honor your needs over others' expectations, every time you say, "I am enough," and actually mean it, you rewrite the story, one true moment at a time.